Welcome to the Inside Silverstone Podcast, a business-focused podcast covering all things tech, engineering and innovation. Hosted by me, Chris Broome, a huge tech, motorsport and gaming fan, and also the owner of Longhurst, a firm of lifestyle financial planners and independent financial advisors located in Silverstone, Northamptonshire. This is a series of unscripted and unpolished conversations with leading business owners, thought leaders and high-tech talent where we discuss their experiences within the Silverstone business and motorsport region. We will also be asking them to share their knowledge, insight and their thoughts on the future just for you. If you're looking to learn more about the Silverstone high growth region and commercially connect with like-minded peers, you've definitely come to the right place. Welcome to Inside Silverstone.
Welcome to the next edition of Inside Silverstone. My name is Chris Broome and I am your host. Today's edition is a special edition. It is episode number 40, and the end of season 2. Core blimey, hasn't that gone quickly? We started the podcast at the sort of latter part of 2018. Fast forward to August 2019 and we are 40 episodes in. Fantastic, great news, and big thanks for everybody that's been involved. Today, unfortunately for all of you lot listening, it's going to be me speaking. And today what I want to do is quickly pass on my thanks to a few people, including those included in the production of Inside Silverstone, but also to the guests that we've had this season. And then once I've concluded that, I'm going to talk about something very important and close to my heart. I'm going to talk about financial planning. And more importantly, the value and the power that proper financial planning has on the households and clients we work with. And the reason I'm going to do that is, predictably, over the sort of 39 interviews that I've done to date, or 38 interviews that I've done, occasionally I get asked about what I do and what I actually do for a living. And so what I want to do today in this episode is just cover off a little bit more about what I do and why I do it and the power that it has and the influence that it has on the households that we work with. But more importantly, let's go through the thanks for the Inside Silverstone podcast. So the production of Inside Silverstone isn't just me, isn't just Chris Broome doing the interviews and grabbing all the headlines, as it were. There's actually a team of people that sit behind me who do a lot of hard work and do a lot of the heavy lifting. So in relation to the production of the audio, we have a chap called James Eade. Now, James was introduced to me by another financial planner, and James is basically used by, and his services are used by everybody involved in sort of podcasts within the financial planning and financial services space, or certainly a lot of people involved in that space. And so James basically does all the audio. I send him the clips of the interviews, including the one that you're listening to right now, and then he basically tidies it all up and makes us all sound like we're in Hollywood or the radio or otherwise. So James, thank you very, very much for your continued support, including the short turnaround that you've done on this very episode, that you'll turn around within an hour or two of me sending it to you. So thank you very much, mate. We have Lauren Phillips. So Lauren is housed on our Longhurst website, so longhurst.co.uk. Lauren is Longhurst's in-house graphic designer and marketeer, and Lauren is the person that's responsible for putting together all of the artwork for the show, and any of the graphics and our logo and anything that you can basically see visually on social media. Lauren is the lady that's involved in putting that together. So thank you, Lauren. And last but not least, a relatively newer addition to the team is Simon Riley. So Simon is the chap that's responsible for putting together the video content for the mastermind sessions, which is the sort of 3 episodes that we've done where we've put basically a camera in front of some of our guests. Simon has helped me sort of evolve and improve the quality of those video recordings, which originally started with me making a last-minute decision to do a recording on my mobile phone, where we then had a sort of slight audio issue, and then saw me basically purchase some video cameras. And as you will see from sort of episode sort of 2 of the mastermind sessions through to episode 3, there's a distinct improvement, and that is purely down to Simon. So Simon Riley, thank you very much for your continued support. Simon's going to be involved in mastermind sessions throughout season 3, which is going to be coming later this year. And Simon's also fantastically agreed to help me within Longhurst put together some client stories and some client testimony videos, so that we can really highlight the good that we're doing at Longhurst and the value that our clients at least are telling us that they're receiving by the work that we're doing. So Simon, thank you very much for being part of the team, mate. I also just want to thank everybody that's been part of season 2 from an interviewee perspective. And I'm literally just on our website now, scrolling through, and it's 23 interviews. Which is a phenomenal amount. And it started at the beginning of this year, so 2019, with Neil Patterson, who's a principal of Silverstone UTC, with Neil explaining basically his journey from sort of McLaren Automotive through to leading one of the region's premier sort of technical colleges, and the sort of financial struggles that the college always has because of educational cuts within the UK, but also sort of hopes for the future. And then sort of whizzing up the page, we've got Simon Arkle, so thanks Simon from E&W for coming on the show, Anthony White from Silverstone Composites, which is fantastic, thanks for coming on the show, Anthony, Neil Morgan and Danson from Good Fabrications and Danica. We then did our first mastermind sessions, which was capital raising for dummies, where we've got my mate Matt Lawley, Ryan Shields, Kirsty Simmons and Tom Hayward, and so they were basically the guinea pigs for the mastermind sessions, but feedback so far from everybody that's listened to them and watched them has been really, really positive, including my sort of cock up on the first one, which everyone's sort of laughed at with me and sort of moved forward, which is good. Simon Dowson from Delta Motorsport, fantastic interview with Simon, if you haven't listened to it, basically explaining his sort of journey from sort of Reynard Motorsport through to ultimately launching one of the most respected businesses in the region in the form of Delta. Really, really good interview there, Simon, so thank you very much. James Southall, head of risk at Hexagic. Fantastic conversation really about his journey from sort of war zones of Basra, Iraq, through to the sort of STC and all the good work within sort of cybersecurity that Hexagic are doing. Grant Lockheed from OBP Motorsport, really good interview there, just talking about basically all the engineering services that they offer. Sort of new mate Tobias Nickel from Punch Flybrid, fantastic sort of meeting with him, just talking through basically flywheel technology and their involvement in the STC. Colin McGrory from Sandwell, finally got Colin on the show, who is basically the one of the global leaders of shot pinning. And also basically spoke through his journey working with Sir Jackie Stewart to launch Stewart Grand Prix, and clearly they'll work with the STC now. So thank you, Colin. Tom Hayward, I managed to get Tom Hayward back on the show. So Tom's an investment manager at Foresight Group, just talking through all things sort of private equity, how investment managers do business to secure and help businesses secure capital, and clearly the work they're doing with our community. Luke Rust, thanks Luke for coming on the show. Fantastic conversation about immense simulations, the great work they're doing in relation to mobility. And then we got Luke later on in one of the mastermind sessions as well, which was fantastic. John Corbett from Barclays Bank. Really good, positive, and at times really funny interview with John, just talking about basically their involvement in the community and the wider region, discussions about Eagle Labs, and ultimately what it's like being a Derby County fan, which at times can be a struggle, no doubt, said the Liverpool fan. And then as I whiz up this page, I'll sort of whiz through this, but Dominic Hopkins from Hewittsons, fantastic conversation about basically the beginnings of his career, which started in Hong Kong and how he ended up basically in the countryside of Northamptonshire, which was great. Andrew Grant, one of the only people I've met who's taller than me. Andrew's conversation regarding Aylesbury Vale District Council, how they are actually at the sort of cutting edge of using technology, certainly ahead of other district councils, and how that's sort of helping all of the residents, which is great. Clive Hartley, fascinating interview with him, founder of Courtier, sort of ranging from his sort of journey from Porsche design through to, Courtier working now with the likes of Bentley and Lego, and doing some fascinating projects and design work there. So Clive, thanks for coming on the show. Stephen McCarthy, Macart Additive. This was a great one for me, especially just learning a bit more about sort of 3D printing, which is the additive part, and ultimately the work and the projects and the collaborations that they've got in the STC, which is fantastic. We then did another mastermind session number 2, where I finally got John Corbett from Barclays, Mark Clement from Grant Thornton, and Simon Arkle in a room, and we basically spoke about common challenges faced by businesses when trying to recruit and retain, basically a top team. So that was good fun, and that also saw the evolution and the slight improvement on the video quality within the mastermind session recordings. We then got on the episodes. We got Mark Jenkins from Cranfield University, who I met whilst attending a Barclays event over at Cranfield. Mark is and sort of self-proclaimed sort of F1 professor, which he sort of says with a smile. And it's basically because he has a sort of very, very deep knowledge on all things sort of F1, Bernie Ecclestone, everything to do with sort of Aston, Formula E, Silverstone Grand Prix. Really, really interesting conversation if you are into F1. But also he explains the sort of inner workings of Cranfield University and the good they're doing there to help businesses sort of move forward. And up until this point, unfortunately, it had been, and oddly, it had been quite male heavy, as opposed to season 1, which was a bit more mixed. But fortunately, we sort of then, at the latter part of season 2 of this podcast series, we then started to get some females to come on, which we need more of. So if you're listening to this and you are a wonderful female and you are involved in some capacity in Silverstone or technology or innovation, and you want to come on the show, please contact me. But in this instance, Dolores Sanders from Total Control Pro came on the show and had such a fabulous conversation with Dolores, not only about what Total Control Pro actually do in relation to sort of cloud-based solutions and empowering employees and management, but we also spoke about her recent Innovate UK Women in Innovation Award, which is critically important, certainly from a role model perspective or a real model perspective, as I hear in the press, and also about how she met the ex-Prime Minister, the now ex-Prime Minister. Fantastic interview with Dolores. We then move on to Chris Horton, which sort of conveyed a story of his journey from sort of F1, ultimately, being a sort of Cosworth racing engineer and sort of head of F1 track support, through to launching Performance Projects, his fantastic business, which is not only doing some fantastic work within sort of motorsport, but also just in electric vehicle and the machinery space. Fantastic interview there. So Chris, thanks for coming on. And then we sort of start drawing the season to a close with Deborah Childs. Deborah Childs was CEO of Novacroft, former Apple employee. Just a really, really insightful and sort of compassionate interview, talking through sort of kindness and caring and smart technology and a subsequent project called the Kindness Movement, which is focused on helping children throughout the world. Just a combination of IT and just being a good human, basically, in that interview. So thank you, Deborah, for coming on the show. And then last but not least is Mastermind Session number 3, which was the last interview and session that we aired, and this one was talking about the future of mobility. which we were very kindly allowed to video record and film at David Brown Automotive on Silverstone Park, where we had Chris Kirby from Tomorrow's Journey, Luke Rust again from Immense Simulations, Mike Hayward, who was on season 1 from Woodfines, and Sally Povaletsky from Straight Six Designs, who was also on episode 1. And here we basically just talk through everything to do with autonomous vehicles, AI, and ultimately humans, and our engagement in sort of changing our thought process and our behaviour around mobility, but also just in general the environment and how our actions sort of can help or and impede what's going to happen in the future. And last but not least, obviously this episode 40, my waffle, thanking everybody. But yeah, been a fantastic podcast series. For me, I'm a financial planner and a business owner. Never thought to be a sort of content market person and podcast producer and video producer. That's not really where my sort of specialities lie. But I have thoroughly enjoyed doing this, in part and mostly because of the guests. Because, sitting down for 30 minutes or an hour in some instances with people that in some instances I haven't met before has been fantastic. It's been good fun. Everyone's been a good sport. Everybody's fully engaged in what we've done. So again, and finally, thank you all for coming on the show. For those that haven't been on the show but want to, please get in contact with us. Our contact details are in the show notes of this podcast. But clearly, you can just Google Inside Silverstone Podcast or Google longhurst.co.uk or Chris Broome, and you'll basically be able to find us. We are just looking to speak to and tell the story of anybody involved sort of in the business region, ideally business owners or those that are sort of senior in the sort of launch or the running of the business, just so that we can understand the genesis behind why the business exists and why you do what you do, but also what you specialize at, and how you can help the business community and also how they can help you. So very, very good way of business developing for you, and networking and connecting, especially with the Silverstone Technology Cluster, which is a growing community. I think there's maybe 100, 110 members now. Pim, my good friend, will be able to tell me that and update us. But ultimately, it's a growing community with a fantastic business sort of area within sort of a Silverstone Park business region, which is only ever going to get stronger and stronger as it sort of evolves and helps push forward the sort of high growth business region and the arc and the corridor that's sort of spanning from Cambridge through to Silverstone through to Oxford. So anybody wants to get involved in the podcast, please give me a shout out. Right. That's the thanks for everybody being involved in the podcast piece over. What I want to do now, and hopefully I'll keep this as brief as possible for everybody, is just talk about how I view and the feedback we get from clients about the sort of value of financial planning and the benefits that we know, because we get told this, that our households sort of receive by the work that we do. And the main reason I want to do this is that, as you can appreciate, being a financial planner or indeed a financial advisor, which is how some people would view us, financial advice and investment advice and wealth management or whatever people call themselves or and the service that they deliver sometimes gets a bad press, and rightly so in some instances, because it's not a day goes past where you don't hear stories of potential mis-selling in the form of investment scams. And I've literally just posted an article on the Longhurst website about investment scams and how to avoid them. So if you or indeed one of your loved ones or anybody that you know has any concerns about potential phone calls or emails that they've received about investments, go on to the Longhurst website and you sort of read some tips about how to sort of protect yourself or protect your loved ones from that. But ultimately, sometimes financial services, the banking world, clearly gets a very bad rep. Some instances it's founded and it could be demonstrated because of unfit and improper individuals. But sometimes, certainly in my world and the circles that I sort of move in relation to financial planning, it can be unjust. And so the purpose of today is just to really explain what we do at Longhurst and what we specialise in, so that if this strikes a chord for you or somebody that you think may benefit from this, then you know what we do and you know that our door's open and you can always come and talk to us about that. Ultimately, financial planning and good financial planning, and if you were to work with a good financial planner, would help you to answer some of life's very, very important financial questions. Financial questions such as, do you have the right building blocks in place to live the life that you want for you and your family? Will I be able to afford to retire or make changes in my life, which is probably more important, i.e. I might not stop working, but I need to know that financially I've got control over that. Will I ever run out of money? If you are going to be retiring in your 50s or 60s, based on National Office of Statistics, you will be living a 3 or 4 decade retirement where you're not working and generating an income, but living a 3 or 4 decade retirement of rising costs, i.e. inflation. Yeah, the basket of goods that you pay for £1 or £100 is not going to be worth that in 2 or 3 decades' time. Yeah, so you need to make sure that your money continues to grow in real time and real value, otherwise it's not going to be able to continue to buy that basket of goods. Big question that we get asked, am I paying too much tax? And an even bigger question, certainly for the business owners that we meet, is how much do I need to sell my business for? Or how do I make my business work harder for me and start paying me more for me to be able to save enough so that I can then achieve the lifestyle that I want? Big questions that not all financial advisors, wealth managers are going to be able to answer, but it's something that a proper financial planner, certainly using the software that we use and a financial planner would use or should use, will be able to answer. Because by knowing these answers, clients then become more confident with the life that they want to lead, that they're able to sort of withstand whatever life and also investments markets throw at them. And by having those questions answered, they'll then have the reassurance that the trusted financial planner is on their side. Somebody who understands them, who has spent time understanding them, really understanding them, their family and their goals, and a financial planner that will ultimately be with them day in, day out, year on, year out, throughout their life as things change and pivot, improve, sometimes get worse, but they've got somebody by their side who's always going to be there. And that's the power of a financial planner. Financial planner is somebody that will become a trusted friend, a trusted ally. Clients become friends, friends become clients is a phrase that we use. Such is the relationship that I have with my clients and households. Those that know me can probably predict that I would look to become friends naturally with the people that we work alongside, because the conversations that we have go beyond the conversations that you typically have with another professional advisor, certainly with a lawyer or an accountant. I'm going to talk to you and we're going to talk to you about your family. Really talk to you about your family. We're going to really talk to you about your business. We're going to talk to you about the genesis of why you launched the business or the business that you're employed by. But we're also going to talk to you about things that you're hopeful for, but also things that you're fearful of. Because without understanding all of that, there's no way that we can deliver financial planning and let alone any regulated financial advice to you, because we won't know whether or not that advice is going to be stuck to and whether or not you're going to listen to it, because we don't know who you are. That's why we spend time getting to know who you are. And so a proper financial planner is going to spend time to do that. And then they're going to be able to help you answer those questions. Now at Longhurst, we've developed a 3-step process at the beginning, a three-step initial process that we call the 3 hats principle. And for those that have ever seen me sort of speak at company events and team events where I've introduced this, you'll remember it. So it's basically called the 3 hats principle. And hat 1 is what we do at the very beginning of the relationship when we first meet. Now, the reality is people don't typically come to us because they say, Chris, we want financial planning. Most people will come to us because they have a problem or a question that they need answering. And that could be, I've got these historical workplace pensions and I need to know whether or not I should be consolidating them. putting them into a new pension regime. How do I invest that money, and should I be contributing a bit more? That's a bit common. That's a very common question. Some will come to us saying, we've just received an inheritance. What do we do with it? Others will come and say, I've got concerns that I haven't got enough life insurance in place for the family. But in most instances, people turn up at the office with a sort of metaphorical, philosophically, or a proverbial carrier bag of, or a filing cabinet of paperwork, of products, of investments, of stuff that they have acquired or been sold to throughout their life. Certainly, if we're meeting somebody that's in their 50s, as an example, which is fairly common, they will have had 2 or 3 decades worth of employment behind them, and normally quite a large filing cabinet with, in some instances, half a dozen pensions, a bunch of ISAs, some bonds, and a whole host of different types of insurance products. And normally the question will be, what do I do with this? What does it mean? Is it meaningful? Is it going to enable me to sort of retire at age 65 or 60 or whatever it is that's sort of in their mindset? And so what we'll do in that instance is say, fine, but let's sort of take some steps back. Let's first of all spend some time getting to know who you are. And so of the 3 hats principle that we followed, hat 1 is life planning. And here we hold a series of meetings in a very, very relaxed environment, and typically with limited paperwork out. I may have a notepad out and a pen, but I certainly don't need to see your paperwork, and we don't need to know what's in your filing cabinet specifically at this time, because the purpose of this first life planning meeting, hat 1, is for us to have some deep dive conversations about you, your life, the past, what money was like growing up, present day, the family, work, business, and importantly, the future that you hope to have at whatever age. And this could be a conversation with somebody that's in their late 20s, which I had recently, through the people that are, potentially in their 60s or 70s, which is the sort of other end of the sort of age spectrum that we work with at the moment. We'll talk about money. We'll talk about you with money. And most importantly, through this process, we will give you space and time to think about what you're saying and the answers you're going to give, and then we'll let you give them. No judgment on our part, no opinion, because we're going to be talking about you and ultimately the truth behind everything that you want in life. By doing this and by following this sort of life planning session, it enables us to really, really, really get to know you more so than any other professional advisor you work with, and certainly more so than any financial advisor or wealth manager you've ever worked with. And what you'll appreciate from this sort of initial hat 1 process, the life planning process, is at no time have I spoken to you about products, have I tried to sell you investment funds or some sort of insurance policy, because that's of absolutely no interest to us. It's purely about understanding who you are. And that can be over a series of 1, 2, 3 meetings. However long it takes to get into a place where we can conclude with saying, okay, I've got a really, really healthy, good picture of your sort of current situation and what you're doing. After we've concluded the life planning section, we then move on to the financial planning section, which we call hat 2. So here we basically build your very own financial life plan, which is used and created by software, sophisticated planning software. We use a system called Voyant, and there are two videos on our video store page, video 2 and 3, which just basically give you a good visual representation of the financial planning software that we use. Here we basically fill the software with the filing cabinet of stuff that you already own. We explain and tell the system the sort of life and time horizons that you've got, from potentially retiring through to paying school and educational fees, through to changing your cars, through to moving home, through to anything that's going to happen in your life, including, unfortunately, at the very end, mortality. So I have to sort of kill you off in the system, so the system knows that that's when the money's going to basically stop. And what this sort of lifetime cash flow forecast allows me to do is showcase the life outcomes you could achieve if you followed through with certain financial decisions. And so once we've filled the system with your sort of filing cabinet of current financial products and contribution rates and everything else, I hit a button called Let's See, and it brings it to life. And there's always one of three outcomes from this financial planning section. The software will always show us one of three outcomes. Outcome one will be that you're currently not on target to achieve financial independence, as I would call it. Which is never a bad thing to be told, because at least you're formally told and officially told. And what I can then do in that instance is show you that if we made some changes to, your financial decision making, you could potentially improve your situation. And those decisions could be sort of saving more, spending less, retiring later, downsizing a house as an example. Either way, it's a useful piece of information, and in some instances a sort of good kick up the bum to say, actually, look, if I really, really want to be doing and living the life that I want, and also the life for my family, I need to start making some improvements to what we're doing. So that would be outcome one of the financial planning. Outcome two could be that actually you've already secured financial independence. You already have enough money saved, and you have enough value in the business to potentially sell it to be able to have some decisions over whether or not you want to work anymore. The quite comical and quite funny statement that we typically get, certainly from a business owner in that example, is, why didn't my accountant tell me this? And the truth behind that is that this isn't what accountants do. Accountants aren't financial planners. They're not building financial life plans. They're not using lifetime cash flow forecasting software. Their role is to be a business advisor to you, to obviously clearly help with the accountancy and the tax planning of the business and other elements there. But what they're not designed to do, and what they're not trained or qualified to do, is provide proper financial planning. And so outcome one is you're not on target, but these are some options that you could consider to get there. Outcome two is you've already achieved financial independence. So now you could either theoretically completely stop working, or have some or make some changes and have some decisions to make. Outcome three occasionally happens. It's not that common, but does occasionally happen. And outcome three is actually not only have you secured financial independence, but nobody told you, but actually also you've got too much money. You've got too much money saved, and that's a bad thing, because you're going to end up being the richest person in the graveyard. And so in those instances, we then have some super positive conversations about giving them permission to spend more, to put in place gifting exercises to their children or their children's children, and even to start doing and focusing on a community that they love, that potentially supported them throughout their sort of career and business journey and their family's journey. So the financial planning outcome, hat two, is always a good one. It's either you just need to do a little bit more work and make some financial changes, and we'll show you what to do and what to change and what to improve, or you've already secured financial independence. So now let's talk about what else you're going to be doing with the rest of your life. Answers to which we would have established in hat one, which is about the life planning, which would have been about actually what is it that you want to do with the rest of your life. So hat one, life planning. Hat two, financial planning. And then hat three, last but not least, is the regulated advice. So this is the IFA bit, as I call it. So this is where, once we've established what the financial plan looks like and what your current filing cabinet of financial products looks like and their usefulness within your plan, we would then produce a regulated advice report that explains and compares and researches the current filing cabinet against whether or not it is deemed appropriate for a new financial product or a new strategy or a new investment fund to be recommended and used, with empirical research and data to back up the recommendation that we're making. But we don't build the financial advice report. We don't build an investment portfolio without a financial plan being built first of all. And the reason for that, and the analogy that I use, as some of you will know, is it's like playing golf with a blindfold on. Unless we build a financial plan that shows us whether or not you're on target, how on earth would I know if you're going to get close to the hole? And the truth is this, and this is the truth that potentially some of the profession and industry don't want to talk about, is the reality is that most financial advisors most wealth managers, inverted commas, just do hat 3. They just do the regulated advice and the IFA bit and the product bit and the investment fund bit, because that's where they perceive their value to be. That's where they get, obviously, they charge their fees and potentially earn their commissions. For us, we don't do the regulated advice bit without the financial planning bit, and we don't do the financial planning bit unless we've had a conversation about your life. Hat 1, Hat 2, Hat 3. That's what we basically do. And then after that, once we've basically given the advice and also put it in place, so we'll oversee the administration and put the advice in and any of the plans in place for you, we then move into what we call the annual forward planning review service. And the description we give there is really, really, really simple. So using a Formula One analogy, getting your race car off the starting line is just the beginning. Ensuring it reaches the checkered flag is the real challenge. And it's the same principle with financial planning. It's the process of review, amend, and implement that's key of sound financial planning. So if you want to maintain a dignified and comfortable retirement, maintain your version of financial independence, remain tax efficient, which is really important, but also leave a meaningful legacy to your loved ones, if that's important to you, it will require constant work and adjustment. Constant work, because lots and lots of things change in life, things in relation to your life decisions, changes in relation to financial markets, in relation to the financial press, in relation to governments and politics, in relation to tax legislation and other forms of legislation. Things are continuously challenging and changing and being challenging. As an example, one of our main roles, and I think where we add real value, is where we support you and your household during inevitable market extremes, both periods of unsustained euphoria when markets are on the rise and everyone's getting very excited, but also exaggerated moments of Armageddon, including 2008, where there was a financial crash, the end of 2018, where there was a bit of a financial wobble, and also right now, present day, which is August 2019. There's clearly a lot of press about at the moment regarding recessions and financial crashes. Our key responsibility during those moments is to ensure that you, as our client, do not do anything that's financially destructive, to make sure that you don't make any life-changing errors that could blow up the financial plan, to prevent you from making the wrong decision at the wrong time for the wrong reason, because natural human emotion kicks in part because your friends tell you about something, perhaps because you're fearful of missing out, or perhaps because you've been listening to or reading the financial press, which is hell-bent on making sure you make changes to your portfolio or changes to your current position, because there's potentially a clickbait article that you've clicked on where they've earned some money, and otherwise. So our role, as our households know during that moment, is to metaphorically hold your hand and make sure that you don't make changes to your situation. And during those moments, that's where we really earn our fee. Interestingly, and I'll sort of start to bring this to a close, a study by Vanguard, so those that understand investing and investment markets, Vanguard are a huge fund manager, US and UK, globally. They carried out a sort of deep research exercise where they identified a number of key areas where financial advisors or a good financial planner really add value. And they actually calculated this total sum to be around 3% a year through both tangible and intangible values. So a tangible value is something that you can clearly prove and demonstrate. So that could be money saved on tax, that could be investment return and investment performance by recommending a more appropriate and suitable portfolio for you. But also from an intangible perspective, and so intangibles being things that you can't actually see, that could be from removing any anxiety or worries you've got regarding sort of money and decision making. It would be regarding holding you accountable for the decisions that we agree on, which is incredibly important. Making sure that you're told what you need to hear as opposed to what you want to hear is important. Making sure that we're at the end of a phone call or an email, and also reducing things like personal admin. Financial planning, financial advice is a good one, will deliver more than just investment performance, which is what a typical IFA will sell to you. We can deliver 5, 10, 15%, whatever it is that they sort of pitch. The reality is a good financial planner is never going to lead with investment performance, because ultimately the investment performance and the investment portfolio is just a servant to the financial plan. Ultimately, we need to ensure that you fulfill your financial planning goals and your life planning goals, and the investment portfolio and the regulated financial advice are just servants to that. And a real financial planner will distill that and continuously repeat that for you. In relation to costs, we always say, view the cost of a financial planner, whoever it is that you use, whether it's Longhurst or another firm, another individual that you trust, always view that cost as an investment into ensuring you live out the rest of the life without fear of money and without fear over any financial decision that you will be taking. See that relationship as one, as I mentioned earlier, that will naturally turn into the friendship, such are the conversations that you're going to be having, and see that relationship as one where that individual, that trusted financial planner, will be the first person you call in the event of anything financially happening in your life. So to put that into context, that could be a challenging life transition, from changing work through to divorce, through to illness, through to something meaningful like that. It could be, Chris, we're going to be changing our car. Can we rerun the financial planning software just to see what the impact of either increasing our monthly cost or a one-off capital expense would be on our household. A decent financial planner will pick up the phone, have an honest conversation with you, forecast it, and then come back and say, yeah, that looks fine, and actually you could potentially increase expenditure in that area or in other areas, and potentially give you a little bit more freedom. Ultimately, being a financial planner, running a financial planning business is all about quantifying this value. How do we justify, how can we back up, the value that a financial planner brings? Sometimes can be challenging because clients often, receive the benefits of good financial planning ad hoc. Not necessarily going to get it all in 1 year. It will be received, throughout the lifetime. And sometimes in the far off future, certainly if it's retirement planning. Our responsibility is to make sure that we work hard to ensure that you feel confident about the future that you're building, but also to give you time to enjoy the opportunities that your money, your wealth, your hard-earned capital provides you. Delivering peace of mind, clearly always sounds very corny, and you're going to read that a lot on financial advisors' websites. But ultimately, our main goal is delivering peace of mind, is ensuring that you sleep easy, and also, more importantly, wake up with a purpose the following day. And for us, for me personally, that's the real value and the real power of financial planning. I think that's probably enough waffle. In essence, that's what we do here at Longhurst. You can go on our website, which is longhurst.co.uk. You can click on our story and click on a page called Our How. And if you basically scroll down to the middle, you'll see a sort of moving image, which basically explains all the areas of advice, from the IFA bit that we that we cover off. And so if I just click through it now, cash flow forecasting, investment management, but as I said, no investment model, no investment portfolio without a financial plan, tax planning, retirement planning, behavioural coaching. So that's just making sure that you stick to the plan. Human insurances. So life insurance, key man insurance, relevant life insurance, income protection, critical illness, private medical insurance, any type of disaster planning we can talk to you about. Inheritance tax planning and estate planning, later life planning. So that's looking at things like care fee planning, property retention strategies, clearly for potentially your parents or your grandparents, or even for yourself, subject to your age listening to this. We also have in-house sort of professional coaching, mindset coaching, but more of that will be publicised advertised over the coming 6 to 12 months. Mortgage services, so residential, buy-to-let, commercial mortgages, cash management services. So if you've got money sat in cash and large amounts sat in cash, whether it be personally or in the business, we've got a research tool that will basically scan the universe of banks and building societies and the cash deposit rates and the ISA rates, cash ISA rates that they're offering. So we can provide that as a service. Life transitional support, so I mentioned that earlier. So whether you're going through a divorce, we definitely have specialism there. Retirement planning, clearly, divorce, illness, and clearly bereavement. Caring, empathetic firm of financial planners. I myself have supported family through divorce, through terminal illness, and also through bereavement. So personally understand the challenges there. We also provide services, and this again is going to be promoted more in the next 6 months, on good giving and philanthropy. With an interesting project coming to the table there, and multi-generational support. So we work with a number of households where the clients are in their 60s, 50s, 60s and 70s and are now wanting to involve their children, some of which are grown-up children, in financial conversations and in some instances financial decisions. And so we're able and very comfortable to sit down with an entire family to talk through what the future looks like and the responsibilities of that money and the wealth and perhaps the business. And last but not least, travel planning. So we've added a travel planning service to the radar, which is supported by our in-house travel planner, Sian. Sian organised my personal trip to Africa recently, which I sort of wrote about on a blog. Basically no cost for that. Sian is able to organise trips away, and she's doing it right now for our clients. And so as a client of Longhurst, you would also gain access to that. So I've thanked everybody for coming on the podcast. I've covered off the value and my perception of the value of proper financial planning and what we do. And I've also asked for other people to come on the podcast if indeed you want to come on and promote your business and talk about the good that you're doing. Last but not least, before I close off and let you all go, is the mastermind sessions. Now, as you'll have seen, there's been 3 mastermind sessions to date, one covering off capital raising, one covering off basically business challenges and addressing the skills gap, and the third one is talking about the future of mobility. But we want to do more mastermind sessions and more recordings. So we need 2 things for that. The first thing we need is more guests to come on, talking about a shared topic, a shared passion, and something that would be good content for the rest of the business community. So if you have an idea for a mastermind session and potentially an idea of other people that could join you as guests on it and are comfortable, all of whom would be comfortable to be video recorded and clearly podcast recorded, please get in contact with me. At the same time, we need interesting locations to record it. David Brown Automotive were incredibly kind and hospitable, and you'll see the outcome of that with a fantastic visually looking recording and also some great promotion for David Brown Automotive. If you are based in Silverstone Park or in the business region, and that could be, Buckinghamshire or Northamptonshire, but in some way you have a connection to Silverstone or the business park or the business region, please get in contact. The equipment that we bring there's not lots to bring, so it's easy to set up. We'd be on site for maybe 2 hours at maximum, and ultimately it'd be very, very good free promotion for your business. Right, that's it. I'm going to bring the podcast to a close. This is episode 40. It is the season finale for season 2. We start recording season 3 in a couple of months, once I've had a bit of time off from doing it. So again, if you want to come on the podcast for season 3, let me know. Clearly, feedback and pointers and ways to improve the show is always valid from our perspective. We're always looking to constantly improve the quality of the content we're producing. So any feedback you can provide would be great. But also on iTunes, you have the ability to leave a review, and ideally a 5-star review. Unfortunately, iTunes is the only platform that you can leave a review for the podcast at the moment. But again, in the show notes, there's a link that will take you through to iTunes. You need an iTunes account to be able to leave a review. We're currently at 44 5-star reviews, which is amazing. 40 episodes with this one, 44 5-star reviews. So thank you so much for everybody that's left a review. In an ideal world, we'd get it up to 45, but in an even idealer world, we'd get it up to 50. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, do you know what? These guys are putting in a lot of effort. The community deserve to be promoted on the iTunes ranking tables and the category tables. Please, please, please go onto iTunes, leave us a 5 out of 5 review, potentially a nice positive comment. And the benefit of that for the business community is that eventually we'll end up on the category rankings tables, and more people, not just nationally, but potentially internationally, will start listening to us. Because we know that works, because at the moment I think 60% of our listener downloads are in the UK and 40% are in the US, which is fascinating. So the more reviews we get, the more people listen to it. So thank you again. And thank you very much for listening to this episode, and thank you for supporting what we're doing. And I look forward to season 3 and whoever we get on. Good stuff, exciting, and thank you.
The Inside Silverstone podcast is produced by the team at Longhurst for the benefit of those with a passion for all things tech, engineering and innovation. For more information, please visit longhurst.co.uk/Inside Silverstone, whilst also remembering to give us a 5 out of 5 star rating on iTunes. Please note that neither Chris Broome or Longhurst work for Silverstone Park, Silverstone Circuit or Silverstone Technology Cluster.